Have you ever wondered what animals can teach us about courage and survival? Imagine this scene, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, 200 kilometers off the coast of Tanzania. A fisherman named Jamal saw something no one would believe unless they witnessed it themselves. A lion, yes, a majestic king of the jungle, swimming desperately, battling exhaustion amidst the relentless waves. Its golden fur shimmered under the scorching sun, and the rhythmic sound of waves crashing against the boat echoed like a drumbeat of uncertainty. But how did this animal end up so far away from its savanna home? Can you feel the intensity of this moment? Jamal, his heart pounding in his chest, immediately understood this wasn't merely a chance encounter. It felt like the universe itself was calling for help. This story is more than just a rescue. It's about compassion, mystery, and the extraordinary bond forged when humans and animals come together against impossible odds. And what was discovered about this lion after the rescue? Well, that revelation will deeply touch your heart. Are you ready to dive into this incredible journey? The sea was calm, but the air had that salty heaviness that clung to the skin. Jamal, a seasoned fisherman, steered his old boat, the engine coughing softly, as if grumbling about the blazing sun. He'd seen it all: turtles, dolphins, even sharks slicing through the water like knives. But that day, 200 kilometers from Tanzania, something broke the routine. A dark shadow bobbed in and out of the waves, like the ocean was playing hide-and-seek. Jamal squinted, his heart skipping a beat. A lion? Swimming? Can you even picture that? The animal, its fur plastered to its body, paddled with effort, each stroke a cry for survival. The sea swallowed its weak roars, but those golden eyes, locked on the boat, seemed to beg for help. Jamal rubbed his face, thinking the heat was messing with him. But there it was, an adult lion, exhausted, battling the current. The smell of salt and diesel mixed with the tension in the air. Who hasn't felt their chest tighten seeing an animal in pain? Take a second and picture it, a savanna king, out of place, at the mercy of the ocean. Jamal thought of his kids, who loved animal stories. What would they say about this? He imagined the lion running free in the Serengeti, not here, lost. How did it get so far? Trafficking? A shipwreck? Questions swirled, but one thing was clear: he couldn't abandon that creature. With shaky hands, he grabbed the radio, his heart thumping like the waves against the hull. The Coast Guard had to know, but how do you explain something this wild? If you love stories that show how animals can blow your mind, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. The radio crackled on Jamal's boat, blending with the sound of waves lapping the hull like a warning. He gripped the device tight, sweat dripping down his face, as the lion swam in circles, slower each time. The urgency in Jamal's voice was raw. "Coast Guard, this is Jamal, high-tide fishing boat. I've got an emergency, a lion, yes, a lion in the sea." Can you imagine the operator's face on the other end? The silence on the radio felt endless, broken only by the animal's hoarse whimper, echoing like a plea for help. The smell of salty air grew heavier, as if the ocean itself was holding its breath. Jamal repeated, almost shouting, "It's drowning, we need help now." At the Coast Guard base, Captain Ismail Mbeki scratched his beard, skeptical. A lion in the Atlantic? It sounded insane, but something in Jamal's voice, that mix of fear and compassion, convinced him. He'd rescued stranded boats before, but an animal? This was new. Ismail called Amara Nguzi, a wildlife veterinarian from the Serengeti, who was analyzing soil samples a few kilometers away. "Amara, get ready. We're rescuing a lion at sea." She laughed, thinking it was a prank, but Ismail's serious tone made her bolt. Ever get that chill when something impossible becomes real? Amara grabbed her kit, heart racing, wondering what she'd find. The rescue ship, its engine roaring like thunder, set off in minutes. Ismail plotted routes on the GPS, the screen glowing under the dim cabin light. Amara, on deck, checked syringes and bandages, the salty wind tangling her hair. The team knew time was merciless, every second mattered. Jamal, still on the radio, gave coordinates, his voice trembling with hope and fear. "It's fighting, but I don't know how much longer it can hold on," pause for a moment and feel this: one man, one boat, one lion, all racing against time. The Coast Guard was on the way, but the rescue would be risky, and the next step? It'd take nerves of steel. The Coast Guard ship sliced through the Atlantic, the engine's rumble mixing with the crash of waves hitting like drums. Ismail, at the helm, kept his eyes glued to the horizon, where Jamal's boat bobbed like a nutshell. The Lion, nearly still, floated with its head barely above water, its soaked fur gleaming in the sun. Amara, on deck, adjusted a rescue net, the smell of wet rope and rusty metal filling the air. "Careful, it's still a predator," Ismail warned, but Amara, with a determined glint in her eyes, replied, "It's asking for help, not a fight." Ever seen an animal that seems to know you're its last hope? Her heart pounded, but compassion guided every move. Getting close to the lion was like dancing with danger. Waves threw salty spray in the team's faces, and the boat rocked, testing everyone's balance. Ismail maneuvered with precision as two sailors lowered an inflatable raft under the animal. The lion let out a low grunt, almost a sigh, cutting through the silence. Picture this: a savanna giant, fragile, lifted by human hands. Using a hoisting tool, they slowly pulled the raft, keeping the lion's airways above water. One mistake, and it could sink. Amara watched every move, whispering, "Hold on, King, hold on." The cold sea breeze carried the tension. The rope strained, and a sailor slipped, nearly losing the raft. Ismail's shout echoed, "Hold tight." Amara's heart stopped for a second, but the team recovered, pulling hard. Finally, the lion was on board, sprawled on the raft, its chest rising and falling with effort. Amara knelt beside it, feeling the faint warmth of its soaked body. Who hasn't felt the relief of a moment that could have gone wrong? The team exchanged looks of triumph, but the job was far from done. The lion needed urgent care, and the port was still hours away. The lion, now on board, looked like a fallen mountain, its drenched body sprawled on the raft. The deck smelled of salt and antiseptic as Amara worked fast, heart racing. The ship's engine roared steadily, but the sound piercing the ear was the lion's faint breathing, each inhale a battle. "It's got hypothermia and severe dehydration," Amara muttered, hooking up in 4 drip. Ever seen an animal fight like it knows the end is near but refuses to give up? She ran her hand over its wet fur, feeling the chill that didn't belong to a savanna king. Ismail, beside her, held a flashlight, its beam flickering over the scene. Amara and the team rigged a bed of blankets, trying to warm the animal. The lion shivered, eyes half closed but alive with a stubborn spark. She checked its pulse, weak, irregular, with arrhythmias that knotted her stomach. "Come on, big guy, you're tougher than this," she whispered, injecting drugs to stabilize its heart. The metallic smell of blood mixed with seawater hung heavy. Take a second and feel this: a team racing against time, on a rocking ship, to save a lion no one knew how it got there. Compassion bound them, but so did doubt. Was it trafficking? An accident? Minutes turned to hours, and the lion teetered between life and death. A sailor brought hot coffee, its steam rising like a faint promise of relief, but Amara barely noticed, her eyes were on the heart monitor. Suddenly, a sharp beep cut the silence, the lion's heart faltered. "Not now," she yelled, starting chest compressions with steady hands. Ever felt the weight of a moment where everything hangs in the balance? The team held its breath until the beep returned, slow but steady. Relief washed over them, but the port was still far, and the lion needed more than a ship could offer. The ship docked at the port, the pier's winch creaking like a metallic groan. The lion, wrapped in blankets, looked like a broken statue, its chest rising with frail breaths. Amara, face sweaty and hands smelling of antiseptic, checked the heart monitor, each beep a small win. A helicopter waited, its blades slicing the air with a hum that rattled bones. "We're taking it to the vet center, it needs more," Amara said, her voice firm but eyes full of hope and fear. Ever had that moment where everything rides on one last push? The lion, exhausted, seemed to cling to life, as if it knew the fight wasn't over. Moving a 200-kilo lion to a helicopter was no joke. The team used a reinforced stretcher, the animal's wet hide slipping under the sailor's hands. The port's asphalt radiated heat, mingling with the smell of fuel. Ismail directed with quick gestures, shouting orders over the deafening rotor noise. "Watch its head." Amara climbed in beside the lion, clutching the forebag like an anchor. Picture this, a helicopter taking off, carrying a Savannah king toward salvation. The machine's roar drowned out everything but the weight of responsibility in Amara's chest. At the veterinary center, a team of experts waited with X-ray machines and oxygen tanks ready. The lion, now nicknamed Simba by a playful sailor, underwent intense exams. For 3 days, it fought, its heart stopping twice. Amara stayed by its side, sleeping on hard chairs, the smell of stale coffee her companion. With each resuscitation, she whispered, "You're from the Serengeti, Simba, don't give up." Who hasn't rooted for a miracle against slim odds? Exams revealed rope marks, hinting at trafficking, a truth that broke everyone's hearts. Simba, the lion who defied the ocean, survived. After days of struggle in the vet center, he opened his eyes, his low roar echoing like gentle thunder. The smell of antiseptic mixed with the hope filling Amara's heart. The rope marks on his body told a cruel story. Traffickers had torn him from the Serengeti, but fate, or the universe, put Jamal, Ismail, and Amara in his path. Isn't it wild how sometimes the greatest teachers have 4 paws? Simba returned to the savannah, stronger, a symbol of resilience. The team that saved him learned that compassion can unite strangers in a bigger mission, protecting wildlife. This story reminds us that every animal carries a lesson. Who hasn't felt their soul stirred by a creature that seems to understand you? Simba's journey didn't end with the rescue, it sparked action against animal trafficking in Tanzania. Pause and think, what would you do faced with such an unlikely cry for help? And you, ever had an animal change your life? Share it in the comments. If this story warmed your heart, the next video YouTube suggests will move you even more, don't miss it.